Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Italia Pass Ready for Rome webinar. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I am the community manager for Italia Pass. And I'm joined today by my colleague Sofia Bragaglia, and she's our Italia Pass Italy Experience Specialist. And so, between the both of us, we have decades of experience living in Italy. Sophia is actually from Italy, and I've been living in Rome now for this is my 25th year living in Rome. So, we have lots of information that we want to share with you to help you make a fantastic trip to Italy and feel right at home from the time that you get to Rome. Before we get started, I wanted to just quickly go over what is Italia Pass because some people aren't really clear. Most of you probably arrived here because you purchased a ticket with Italia Rail. So Italia Rail is part of a family of brands, the Italia brands, which includes Italia Pass. And they've been working with millions of tourists to Italy since the late 1980s. And our CEO wanted to make kind of an integrated experience for all of the Italia brand customers. And so he created Italia Pass with the idea to help you make your best trip to Italy ever. So Italia Pass is two things. Primarily, it's a travel benefits pass. It costs $149 and you get $650 and up in value for your travel. But it's also a free community. So if you have any questions about traveling to Italy, you can come over to community.italiapass.com where I manage the community and there's other fellow Italy travelers there. So you can ask your questions about your trip and get answers there. Today, what we're going to cover are some basic pieces of information about coming to Rome and traveling here. And then at the very end, that'll be about a half an hour. And then at the end, we will open it up to a chat-based Q&A session for 15 minutes live with myself and Sophia. And so if you have any questions at any time throughout the webinar, feel free to just type those into the chat box. At the bottom of your screen, you should have an icon that has a Q&A in the chat, and you can just type them into the Q&A and we will tackle those at the end. But what we're going to go through today is first of all, when you arrive at the airport and how to get into the city, our lounge that we have at Rome Termini train station, how to get around on public transport, a little bit about eating out here, some things you might want to know, and how to avoid tourist traps. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can get some complimentary access and tours here in Rome, plus $100 off of an Italia Tours experience. I'll wrap up with a couple of my favorite local tips, and then we'll jump into that live Q&A that I mentioned. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Sophia to tell you about arriving at Fiumicino Airport and how to get into the city from there.
Thank you, Shelley. Hello, everyone. Thank you again to everyone for joining us today. And yeah, we can get started. So let's say now you've landed at FCO. That's the main airport in Rome. And from here, you'll have a few options to get to the center of the city. As you see on the slide, they're all indicated in the terminal, so it's very easy to navigate. But yeah, the first option that you'll have is to reach Roma Termini by train. Roma Termini is the main train station in Rome. And in order to get there, there's a specific type of train that most travelers, I would say, usually pick. It's called the Leonardo Express, and it's a direct nonstop train to Termini Station. It's one of the easiest, fastest ways to travel into the city. It's around $18 on Italia Rail per person. So that's usually, again, a fan favorite, so to speak. But there are two other types of trains that you can take, or rather, there's another type of train that travels to two different stations in Rome. Those are just regular regional trains. They don't have a specific special status like the Leonardo Express, but they could be useful if you're trying to reach other areas of Rome. These trains travel to Trastevere and Ostiense, and they're slightly cheaper. They're around $10 on Italia Rail. But they're all considered regional trains. So depending on where you're trying to get to in the city, one might work better than the other. And either way, you can board them directly from FCO. Now, we get a lot of questions on whether or not you should book these tickets in advance. And I would recommend booking them before you actually arrive in Rome, especially if you're traveling during busy seasons. It might be good, to account for queues. There's a lot of people that might be trying to get these tickets. The servers may get a little overwhelmed. So if you know in advance when you'll be there, of course, with your flights and everything, I would just recommend booking it in advance. Just make sure you pick the right time. Leonardo Express tickets, especially, are time specific, so you'll want to do some calculations to know exactly when you'll be at the train station. Um, that time frame, I would recommend. I would recommend booking a time that's at least 1.5 hours to maybe 2 hours after your scheduled landing time, and definitely no trains out of Roma Termini. Within 3 hours of your arrival. This is just in case of delays, luggage issues, any unforeseen events. You'll want to keep an open window in case anything happens so that you don't have to stress about the trains to Rome or to any other city that you're trying to get to. Um, the station Termini is also quite kind of a big station. As I mentioned, it's the main one in Rome, so it will also take you some time to just navigate and find your way to your platform or anywhere that you're trying to get inside the station. Um, so that's it for trains. As you see on the slide, there are other ways to get into the city as well. Of course, there are taxis. You can take one outside the terminal. They have a fixed rate of 55 euros, so those are pretty handy. Or other options include a shuttle bus or a private transfer. That's a service that we offer. You can book one and be taken straight to your accommodation in Rome, or again to the train station if you're trying to get somewhere else. Um, Anywhere you like in Rome, we can take you. So if you're interested, you can book it on the Italia Tours website or through an Italy experience specialist such as myself. So feel free to reach out anytime and we'll get you set up. Next up, we have, should I rent a car? Now, this is a question that comes up a lot. I would say there's no universal answer, but I can try and give you some pointers to help you decide. Um, I would say a good rule of thumb is if you know you're going to be exploring some of the more remote areas of Italy, some very popular ones can be the Tuscan countryside or the Amalfi Coast. Then in this case, I would say renting a car is a great option, just because the public transport in these areas is um, not as common or not as, let's say there are not as many bus rides or tram rides as you would find in a main city. So getting around can be a bit more difficult, and having a car can be very handy. However, if you're only going to be visiting major cities, let's say Florence, Rome, Milan, I would not recommend renting a car just because the best way to navigate in between these cities is by train. And once you're actually in the city, it can be really tricky to drive. Driving, parking, there's a lot of traffic rules in Italy, especially once you get to a city center. So there's no real point to renting a car if you'll be inside the city. There's plenty of buses, plenty of trams, some, subways in specific cities that you can use. So definitely I would definitely say it's not necessary, but at the end of the day, it's up to you, whichever option you prefer. If you do decide to rent a car, you can do so on our platform Italia Drive, and as a member, you would benefit from a $10 discount that you can redeem after booking with us. Another perk of being a member, as you see here, is the access to our Italia Pass lounge. This is a lounge that's located inside of Roma Termini station, the station that I was mentioning before. And it's just a great place to hang out if you have some free time before boarding a train or if you're waiting for your hotel check-in time. You can come say hello to us. You can relax there. We offer free Wi-Fi, espresso, some refreshments. So it's a good spot to just rest for a little bit. And if you have any luggage that you need to store, that is also a service that we offer. Any carry-on or larger suitcases, we can keep for you, and you can come and retrieve them anytime during opening hours. We also have some lovely hosts. So if you have any questions about Rome or your train tickets, they'll be happy to help you. All we ask is that you book your visit beforehand so that we know you're coming and that we're ready to welcome you. And now I'll hand it over to Shelley for some information on public transport within the city.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dig into how you're going to get around Rome. It's a very walkable city, but if you have mobility issues or if you want to take public transport to get places faster, here's the lowdown. So Rome works mainly with buses. There are only two subway lines. So we do have an underground, it's just not very extensive. It's only two lines, which makes it very easy to navigate. The A line and the B line. And what makes it even easier to navigate is they only intersect at one point, and that point is Termini train station, which you've already heard about a couple of times. It's a very big transport hub. So if you ever need to change from line A to line B or vice versa, you're going to have to go through Termini to do so. There's a couple of trams. The only one that you might use would be Tram 8, which is downtown by Piazza Venezia. Otherwise, you probably won't use those too much. In terms of tickets, it's also a very easy system. So the tickets are relatively inexpensive compared to other large European cities. A ticket costs €1.50 and it's time limited. It doesn't go by zones of the city, so that makes it very straightforward. Your ticket is 150 and that ticket is good for 100 minutes of unlimited rides on any public transport method. Super easy. The time limit starts the time that you board your first form of transport, bus, metro, tram, whatever it is. The only exception to that 100-minute rule is that within those 100 minutes, your ticket is only good for one subway ride. So what that means is you can ride the subway as long as you want, but once you exit the station, you can no longer get back on the subway with that same ticket. However, you can still use that ticket until that 100 minutes has expired on any of the other buses or trams above ground transport. You don't actually need to buy a physical ticket because nowadays the public transport system uses tap and go. So what that means is that you can use any contactless payment method that you have, and that works as your ticket. So that means that you can use an actual physical credit or debit card that has a contactless chip, or you can use your smartphone if you have payment methods like Apple Pay or the Google Pay app. You can use those, your cards that are stored on those as your ticket. You just take it out, you tap it on the box. There's a box on the bus, a couple boxes that you can tap electronically, or when you're going through the metro, you're going through the turnstile, you just tap and it registers as your ticket. And from the time you tap in the first time, you only have to tap in once. You just tap and that's it. And then it's good for 100 minutes from that point forward. It automatically activates. The one thing is you can only use one card per rider. So that means you can't use the same payment method for like your whole family, for example. Each member of your family, or rather whoever you're traveling with, each person in your party needs to have their own payment method. So if you don't have four different cards, you're going to need to get paper tickets. The way that you can do that, and tickets, by the way, if you want to practice your Italian, the word is biglietto. You can buy tickets throughout the city at the tabaccheria, which are tobacconists, and those are easy to identify because above the door you're going to see a little sign that has a T, like a black T on a white background. Or actually, it might be the other way around. It might be a white T on a black background. In any case, you'll easily spot them. Or at newsstands. We have several hundreds of newsstands throughout the city, and you can just ask for a biglietto, or if you want to do round trip, biglietti, and due biglietti, and you can get the tickets also at machines, automatic machines, but only in the subway stations. There are no machines at bus stops. One of the routes that I wanted to particularly highlight for you is Bus Route 64 because it's very, very convenient for visitors to the city. Once again, we're talking about Termini Station. So the end of the line is at Termini and the other end of the line is at Vatican. So it crosses the entire historic center and takes you across from the main train station all the way over to Vatican. So you're going to be able to get off at several different points to see a lot of the major sites. So it's very convenient for that reason. I would caution you just to be very careful with your belongings when you're on that bus because it tends to get particularly crowded, and particularly crowded areas are targets for pickpockets. I don't want to alarm you about pickpocketing because I've been here for 25 years and I've never been pickpocketed once. And it's not that I have some magical anti-pickpocket power, it's just that I'm very aware of my surroundings when I'm going around the city. And you can be too. If you put if you have a purse, put it like across your body. If you're carrying a wallet, don't put it in your back pocket. If you have cameras, just make sure that everything that's valuable, you have a sense of where it is and that you are standing in a way that shows people that you know where you're going, you're confident, you're not distracted. I guess that would be the main thing. Just don't look to, and I know it's gonna be hard because you see this photo and the bus goes right in front of the Coliseum, but just keep an eye on your surroundings, and you'll be fine. The main places where that pickpockets can take advantage are crowds because everyone's jostling. So Termini Station, for example, if you're on that platform, sometimes that platform gets really crowded. So find ways to kind of just be aware of your surroundings and go to the very end of the platform or things like that where you can kind of have more room and space to kind of be aware. But don't worry at all because Rome is a very safe city. Our rate of violent crime is very low. Petty crime is a thing, but petty crime is typical in any large city, at least across the major tourist capitals across Europe. So, we don't stand out for that. So don't be alarmed if you're seeing things on social media that make you feel very nervous. I can assure you, if you look confident, you're not going to be targeted. There's plenty of distracted tourists who are easier to target. So that wraps it up for the public transport. Now let's dive into a lot of the fun stuff. So eating out, gelato, and some of the things that I'm going to tip you off to what are like tourist traps so that you can have a really authentic experience. So the first thing here is restaurants. I put the dining times because it might be a little bit later than what you're used to. Typically, Italians will not eat lunch out until 1 to 1:30. That's generally the lunchtime for eating out at a restaurant. And for dinner around 8 or even 8:30. And it's not that you won't find a restaurant that's open outside of those times, like earlier. You will. There are obviously restaurants that are open like all day or before that, but those are probably not targeted to local Romans. They're targeted to tourists because tourists have different cultures and habits around what times that they eat. If you want to be local and eating with the locals, these are your best bets for when you're going to go out to eat. Most places don't require reservations. A lot of places you can just walk in. So if you're planning to eat dinner, wait till a little bit later than maybe you're used to. The reason I wrote check, which by the way, if you want to practice your Italian, is il conto. The reason I wrote that is because it might be a little different than you're used to because here in Rome and in Italy in general, but in particular, I've noticed in Rome, culturally, they're not going to bring you your check unless you ask for it. And the reason for that is they're trying to be very courteous of your time with your loved ones and your family and friends at the dinner table. They don't want you to feel rushed. They want you to enjoy your meal, enjoy your time, and not feel like they're trying to usher you out. So they wait for you to tell them when you're ready to go. So if you're kind of going, why are they not bringing the check? This is like slow service. Just simply ask. That's the reason. And they just don't want you to feel pressured to leave. So it's very much in the Italian culture to respect that time at the table together as very special. Tipping, we get a lot of questions about tipping. Should I leave a tip? How much? In Rome and in Italy, and generally in Europe, but especially in Italy, I know for sure, tipping is not really in the custom here. It's not because wait staff make a regular salary. They do not work for tips. So they don't depend on tips to make their salary. So you don't have to leave a tip. It's not expected. Most of my Italian friends don't leave tips. However, if you really enjoyed your meal and you had great service, great food, you want to show a courtesy and just thank the staff there, then feel free to leave a little bit. You can leave like maybe rule of thumb, maybe €1 per person, whatever you feel comfortable with, but certainly never like 20%. That would be unheard of around here. So the reason I tell you this is because if you happen to go to some restaurant that's more of a tourist trap, you just happen in, sometimes they might try to take advantage of tourists in the sense of making you think that it's like, for example, the United States where you need to leave a tip. Don't be fooled. It's not. That's not our custom here. So do not feel pressured into doing that. Oh, and people ask about taxis too. Same goes for taxis. You don't need to tip. If you're paying with cash, you can generally round up so that the driver doesn't need to make small change for you. But tipping is just not a custom with taxis and restaurants. Next, let's talk about gelato. So you see that photo. Gelato is one of our special local desserts here and treats in Italy, and so hopefully you'll get a chance to enjoy it. I do want to point out to you that if you run into a gelato shop that has gelato like you see in that photo, where it's just really like puffy and tall, that's not really authentic. They whip a lot of air into it to make it look showy, but very local, authentic gelato is never really going to come much further than the top of the tub. And it may even be inside a bin with like a metal lid. You may not even see it. If you don't see it, that's a really good sign that it's local, authentic. If you see really bright colors too, that's a tip off that they're using artificial coloring, which any gelataio worth their salt would never add. So it should be natural colors, light colors. And you can order multiple flavors. We usually start with a two flavor cone, is like called the cono piccolo, right? Small cone or cup. You can also get a cup. And in the downtown, that will run you probably 3 to 4 because it's a little bit more expensive. In my neighborhood, which is outside of the center, I pay like 250 for a two flavor, and you can mix and match. So it's a lot of fun. Restaurants. Okay, so avoid any restaurant I would generally say that has pictures on the menu, only because obviously you can imagine a Roman doesn't need to see a picture of what they're going to eat. They know they know what the food names look like. They know what the food is. And the reason I tell you that is because the picture menus are for visitors, which is fine. There's no problem. It's not like you're going to have a terrible meal. But if you want to go to a really local place, it's not going to have pictures on the menu. You're going to see those in places by the Colosseum, places by the Pantheon, places by the Spanish Steps. So if you're looking for an authentic experience, avoid that. And also avoid restaurants where there's like a promoter out front who's like, come on in, come eat here. Obviously, if it's a local, authentic restaurant that locals go to, they don't need to tell people on the street to come in because they have their regulars. So those are a couple of tips for quote unquote tourist traps, but you're probably never going to have a horrible meal in Rome. Even the tourist traps are passable. But if you want a really authentic experience, you'll want to kind of follow these tips. And also at the end of this webinar, I will send you an email that has a list of like all of the resources, and there will be recommendations there for restaurants. Next, I'm going to pass it back to Sophia, speaking of food and authentic food, to tell you about this really cool event that we offer.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, next up, we have our latest member benefit, which is Italia Dime. The idea behind this experience is to get fellow travelers around the dinner table for a Roman's family-style feast. The event is hosted by a passionate local who can answer any questions you might have about food, Rome in general, food within Rome. As Shelley mentioned, there's quite a few local um, specialties, I guess, and in general, Italians are very passionate about food. So if you would like to learn more about that, our host will be more than happy to give you all the information they have. Um, the reviews so far have been great. As I mentioned, it's a fairly new benefit. So we are adding more seatings each week, and it is free for it is completely free for Italia Pass holders. It can also be booked externally, quote unquote, for $49 per person if you're not a member, or if you don't have a specific full Italia Pass. As per usual, the experience can be booked either through the links provided in our emails or by reaching out to support@italiapass.com or on the Italia Tours website. Just there's many avenues, whichever one works best for you. And if you have any questions, as always, just feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help. Now, for all the exciting sights that you'll get to see during your stay in Rome, of course, let's start from the Colosseum. Our members get one free tour of the Colosseum. It's fully guided. It features exclusive access to the arena floor through the iconic Gladiators Gate. So if you're a member with us and you feel being Rome, we 300% recommend taking advantage of that benefit. Just make sure to book it as far in advance as possible because it does get sold out pretty quickly. But it's a fan favorite. It's one of our most popular tours, so definitely make sure to check that out. We also offer other tours, of course, throughout the city. We offer guided tours of the Vatican, walking tours of Rome. These usually include areas like Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain, of course. Um, so yeah, if you're interested in a bundle of all three elements that I just mentioned, you might be interested in something that we have. It's a package. It's called the Rome Tour Pass. We usually recommend this pass for people who are in Rome for 2 days or longer because it includes everything that I've just mentioned. So Colosseum, Vatican, and walking tours of the city. And in order to do those, we usually recommend having at least 2 full days. But it's a pretty good bundle for all three experiences brought together. Regardless, of course, we have many other tours in Rome and in other cities. And if you choose one of our tours, know that our members get $100 off on their first tour order, and 10% off of any subsequent tours only. There's also some transfers that we have on our website. Those are not eligible, but any tour is eligible for these discounts. You can book any of these on, again, italiatours.com. And you can always email us if you have any questions or if you need any help or additional accommodations for these bookings. We're always happy to help. Um, I highly recommend, as I mentioned, booking most tours, but especially the ones in Rome, the Colosseum, the Vatican. They get sold out incredibly quickly, especially when the weather starts getting nicer and everybody's traveling. You'll want to book, I would say, as soon as you're aware of your dates. Um, Also because there is fairly limited space for these visits. So I would just avoid last minute reservations if possible. We also get frequent questions on the dress code and a general rule for visiting these places, especially churches and the Vatican above all, is that you'll need to wear clothes that cover your shoulders and knees. Um, Again, especially true for the Vatican, but it usually goes for most churches all throughout Italy. You also won't be able to bring any large backpacks or strollers into these places, especially the Vatican and the Colosseum. They're very strict about their rules. So if you can bring something smaller, especially for the backpacks, maybe a crossbody bag or a small purse, those are completely fine and they would be more convenient in these situations. But that's pretty much it. Any other attraction that you decide to visit, you can dress however you want, especially if it's not churches. Feel free to go with whatever is most comfortable. There's a lot of walking, especially in cities like Rome, Florence, and Venice. You'll be walking around a lot, so make sure that you're comfortable so that you can enjoy the experience to the max. And now back to Shelley for some local tips.
Okay, here I am. So, last but not least, let's talk about a couple of tips that I always love to give people when they're coming here to visit. The first one is in Rome, we have these water fountains all over the city. They're called nasoni. That means big noses because of the spigots and the way that they look. And you'll find them all over the downtown. They look just like the photo. The water runs continuously. You don't even need to turn it on and off. It comes from a deep underground spring, very cold coming out of the fountain. So you'll have a reusable water bottle that you can refill instead of having to buy plastic bottles and getting gouged with high prices in the busy tourist areas. If you visit us at the lounge, you'll get a gift of a free reusable water bottle. So that makes it easy. And in my resources list that I'm going to send you, I will send you the link for an app that the local Rome water utility has created that lists on a map. It shows based on where you're at, where all these water fountains are. That will be able to be downloaded once you're on this side of the ocean, if you're coming from North America. So you'll have to wait to download it when you're here, but that can be a handy and fun way to find out where you're getting your next water refill. Last but not least, have an aperitivo. You might know of that iconic drink you see in that photo. It's called an Aperol Spritz. This is a pre-dinner tradition that we have here in Italy. It's around 6:30, kind of like a happy hour. It doesn't have to be a drink with alcohol in it. It could just as well be a Coke or a Sprite or an orange soda or whatever. whatever you like, a lemon soda that we have here as well. But what it is you can go to any kind of like coffee bar in this time of day, like 6:30, or you can go to a place like what I have in the photo. This is a place called Mecanismo, and I really like it because you can see that tray. They bring you all these like a really abundant selection of like little finger foods. That spread that you see is like 13 euros per person for the snacks and the drinks included. It's kind of like a chef's choice. It's not like tapas. You don't really get to order them. They just bring you out the snacks. But it's fun because it's like a pre-dinner chit chat time to spend with your friends and family and then head to dinner after. So that's a lot of fun and it's a local thing for you to try that I would recommend. All right, so that wraps up the informational part of our webinar. And like I said, I'm going to prepare an email for you that will have a link to this recording of this webinar. However, if you want to see it before you get the email, we post all of these recordings on our YouTube channel. It's the Italia Pass channel at YouTube, so you can go there and see. And I will send you that email that also will have a link to the resources that I talked about today. And it will also have a recap of the Q&A that we're going to hold right now. So this was last year when it was Jubilee. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then we're going to go into the Q&A directly. And the way that you can ask your questions is just click the Q&A box in the bottom, at the bottom of your screen. And if you have a question that you would like us to answer live, we are available here for the next 15 minutes to answer as many questions as you might have in the next 15 minutes. And if in the meantime you don't have a question right now, but you think of it later, you can always come over to the Italia Pass community and ask there as well. All right, so Karen is our first person asking a question, and she's asking, should I expect any differences on Sundays? That's a good question. So, like, I'm imagining you're thinking, like, should I be aware of any special closures or things like that? You know, Rome is such a big tourist city that nowadays most businesses are open on Sundays. A lot of the smaller, like what you would call like a mom and pop type of shop, the family run like, you know, little businesses. Those are going to be closed on Sundays. But I think for visitors, those aren't going to be that relevant because I'm thinking of things like dry cleaners or butchers or things that like people who live here would depend on. But you're going to find supermarkets open. You're going to find museums open. Interestingly, when it comes to museums, a lot of them are closed on Mondays. So that might be something you want to take into account if you're going to be in the city on a Monday. They do take Mondays off. A lot of them are closed on Monday. So double check before you go. But I really don't think you're going to see in terms of places that visitors would go to, I don't think that you're going to run into anything that would hamper you on a Sunday because Italy now has even like 24-hour grocery stores and things of that nature. It's not quite as much as you might see in the United States, for example, but definitely you're not going to be stuck. Like pharmacies are open, things like that, especially in the downtown because it is such a big tourist hub. Rome is it's year round. So not to worry, but that's a great question.
I do have one note for tours. Just something that
Hmm.
comes to mind for Sundays is that the first Sunday of the month, since all museums and attractions are free, the tours do not run.
Good
So
point. Good point.
that's the only note that I can think of that would make a difference. But yeah.
Want
Next
me to take this
question.
one since it's
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you have a recommendation. I in my research, so Ed is asking, what is the best taxi app for Rome and Bologna? So in my resources list that I'm going to send, there will be a links to different apps for taxis because that's a really good idea. That way you don't have the language barrier on the phone trying to say where you're at. You won't have to listen to like a message in Italian telling you when the taxi's coming and what the name of the taxi is. The best, I don't know, best is kind of a relative term, but I guess the most famous and probably the most used one is called IT Taxi, like It Taxi. But like I said, I'm going to send you the resource link and you can check the different ones out. But if you want to go looking at that one, that's the one that I hear most travelers telling me that they use.
I can take this one if you want. Victor is asking, is the Italia Pass and buying your first train ticket on Primo the same? Yes, essentially, buying a ticket on Primo Fare is it gives you access to the same benefits that you would get with the full Italia Pass. So yes. Um,
This one, if you need to go, Anna is asking if you need to go to Fontana di Trevi, so the Trevi Fountain area from Fiumicino Airport, is it best to take a taxi directly for a family of four, or do you recommend going to Termini Station? Personally, if you were friends of mine coming, I would tell you to hop in a taxi. The reason for that is because if you're going to take a train from Fiumicino to Termini with four people, each of those tickets is going to cost you 15 euros. And so you're looking at like what, like 45 or more? No, more than that, like 60 euros for your family of four. And the taxi is a fixed rate of 55 euros. So you're already saving 10 and it's getting you directly to Trevi Fountain because from Termini to get to Trevi Fountain, if you're going to walk, that's still like a half an hour walk or a bus ride. So yeah, just hop in a taxi. It's really easy at Fiumicino now. They've really streamlined it. It's a really above board. Taxis used to be a little like 20 years ago, you kind of had to be careful with taxis because they weren't all like, you know, above board and it's in sense of like sometimes they try to rip you off and that can still happen but a lot less now from the airport because now there's like a person who works like for the city that stands there and will like reserve your taxi. It's a line, so you just get in line, but they'll give you like a little receipt, like when you get to the front of the line, they'll like give you this piece of paper and so it's all like documented now. It never used to be that way. So you don't have to worry about them like ripping you off because it's all like it should be pretty smooth and straightforward for you. Just get into the line and then they'll get your taxi for you.
Eric is asking, do you recommend any audio guides for self-guided tours? Yes, it depends. I guess it really depends on what you're most interested in when you're doing a self-guided visit. Something that comes to mind, part of the benefits as ItaliaPass members, you get a free entry to the Accademia and the Uffizi galleries in Florence, and those are entirely self-guided. So if you're interested in knowing the full history of the paintings, the art, the artists, how they came to be in that museum, there's a lot, especially Florence and Rome. There's really a lot to learn. So if you're interested in all of that, I would definitely recommend audio guides. I know they can be rented and bought in the museums themselves, but I think there's also some apps that you can
That's what I
potentially.
was going to say too. I was going to say, you know what? I think, why don't I look up for you, Eric? I'll look up when I'm putting together the list of resources because that was what came to my mind too. Because nowadays with smartphones, a lot of places you can just get like free guides from your smartphone. And if you wanted it to be an audio guide, I think if you could just put in like your headphones or whatever, you could do that with your own smartphone. So I'll look up. It's a good, really good question, and it's one that we haven't had before. So I'll check that out for you and when I send the links, you'll find the answer in the Q&A recap. I post it in the community too, so you can always go to the community and find it there.
The next question is everything open on Easter Sunday? Now, that might be a special case, Sunday and the
Mm.
Monday after. I'm not sure
Yeah,
about
that's
Rome.
right, because it's Monday too. A lot of people aren't aware that in Italy, Monday after Easter Sunday is also a holiday. So, I think restaurants. Um, it's going to be probably more of those tourist-oriented restaurants, I think. However, because I think a lot of Italians, in my experience, they eat their Easter like lunch at home. They don't necessarily go out to a restaurant. Would you say?
Yeah,
I
for
think
the
it's
most
more
part.
common. Like there's certain holidays where it's like kind of famous to go out to dinner, like the cenone, like things like that, it's like New Year's. But on Easter Sunday, it's they're like in their homes for the lunch. So, but it's not like the all the restaurants will be closed. But the question is everything open? No, no, definitely it's definitely a very important holiday here. In fact, Easter week is big. It's considered a mini high season because of we have the Vatican here. And so, Easter week in the Roman Catholic religion is the highest holiday of the entire year. So, especially with religious pilgrims, people who come here for the Vatican, a lot of them come at Easter time. So be aware that there's going to be maybe a little bit of extra crowds during that time if you're coming for Easter too.
The next one, Raul is asking, I purchased two tickets from Rome to Naples with Italia Rail. Can I get the credit or only on my next, sorry, only on my next purchase? Um, it depends. If you're not a member with us yet, but you decide to sign up for Italia Pass later and you would like the credit to be applied to a previous ticket, that is 100% something that we can do. If you're already a member, if you purchased Italia Pass with your ticket Rome to Naples, then the credit would have already been scheduled, quote unquote. It's usually issued within 48 hours of your reservation being placed. So it would depend on the channel, if you're already a member or not, and the channel through which you purchase Italia Pass. Italia Pass can either be purchased through Italia Rail with a ticket, or we have italiapass.com where you can get um, a separate, let's say, pass. And yeah, in that case, we can apply it to any reservation. Just make sure to reach out to us and ask us, like, oh, we would like to apply the credit directly to this booking instead of another. And the next one too, Victor is asking, once you buy a Primo train ticket, how long does it take to get registration code to buy other tickets, trips, or other benefits? So the activation system can take up to a few hours. I would say maybe an hour-ish to get your welcome email. That will be the email with your member ID and your promo codes if you have any. And yeah, that's around a maximum of 2 hours, I would say, if there's a lot of traffic. Um, and then from there, there's a secondary process to activate the membership that can take up to, it's usually no longer than, again, those 2 or 3 hours. But especially during high season, it can take a little longer. Um, just in case, if you want to check on the status of your activation, you can reach out to support at italiapass.com, and we'll be happy to, check manually if everything is in place. But you should be able to start booking within a few hours, essentially.
I can take the next one. It says, if I'm in Rome on Good Friday, will I be able to attend Stations of the Cross at the Colosseum? So you should be, there shouldn't be any problem. As far as I know, and I will double check this for you and write in the Q&A recap if it's different than what I'm saying right now. But generally speaking, in the past, it's been you just could show up. It's a big crowd. It's not like you're gonna necessarily see the Pope up close, but it's open to the public. Um, it's at 9:15 in the evening, I believe. I will double check if there's any sort of requirements, like if you need to send in for a reservation, but I doubt it. I think it's just open to the public kind of an event. So, but I will double check on that for you. So yes, the answer is yes. And this is the last one because we're almost wrapping up. So, oh, I can take this one since it's just a local question. It's not about like reservations and whatnot. Victor's asking if there are a lot of English speaking people or do I need to start learning Italian? Yeah, no, you're as a visitor, you'll be fine with using English. Most people in the hospitality industry here speak basic traveler English, so you shouldn't have trouble. And at the same time, if you want to learn a few Italian words, that's always really appreciated by Romans. They're very open, generally speaking. They are happy when people try to communicate in Italian, so it can be fun and kind of a respectful way to show interest in the culture, but certainly don't feel intimidated like you need to be fluent. The people in the hospitality industry. How about Spanish? If you know Spanish, you're going to be pretty fine because um, it's so similar to Italian. I'm actually learning Spanish now, and I've been amazed at how easy it is to learn Spanish because I'm fluent in Italian. Like there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of crossover. So, yeah, you should be fine there.
And
Yeah.
a lot of us even we learn both English and Spanish in school. Not everybody, but there's a
Yeah, that's
lot,
true
lot of
too. That's
people
true too.
learning
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. All right, well, thank you everyone for your questions. And if you have more, please feel free to just hop over to the community. And oh, you're welcome. Victor said thank you. You're very welcome. We're very happy that we were able to be here and help you, and very exciting for your trip. So have a wonderful time. And remember that we are here to help you anytime so that you can really have a great trip in Italy. And so I guess with that, all that's left to say is buon viaggio.
Have fun, everyone. Buon viaggio.
Bye.